Hello everybody again. It's time to read and create with Sherri. Today our book is called Bluebird Summer. It's written by Deborah Hopkinson and illustrated by Beth Ann Anderson. And let's start it. Oh boy. Bluebird nest. Bluebird Summer. This story is told by a little girl called Mags. If you hear a noise in the background, that's just my puppy whining because she's not getting enough attention right now. Every summer, my little brother Cody and I go to the farm on the ridge. It's not much of a farm anymore. The wheat fields are still there, washing up against the barn like a golden sea, but they belong to someone else now. Since Grandma died, Gramps has sold them off, one by one. There's Mag's grandpa. Gramps says he never thought he'd miss the hot taste of dust in his mouth or getting up before dawn to plow. But Gramps misses a lot of things now. Grandma most of all. And you can imagine, Grandma is gone. And the farm's not the same. I miss Grandma too. I miss watching her roll out pie crust smooth as an eggshell, and how she perched on a stool beside the tub and told us stories until our fingers pruned up. I even miss helping her weed the garden. Grandma did not believe in neat rows. That's odd for a gardener. Her garden was a maze of marigolds, bluebells, sunflowers, and morning glories you could wander through and munch sweet snow peas, hot yellow tomatoes, and crunchy baby carrots, if you didn't mind brushing off the dirt. This summer, though, Grandma's garden is just a tangle of thistles and grass. Here and there, a few flowers push through a curtain of weeds. Nobody's tending the garden now that Grandma's gone. Something else is different, too. The bluebirds are gone. Cody noticed at first. One night at supper, he blurted, "Did the bluebirds leave because of Grandma?" I kicked him under the table. We were under orders from Mom not to upset Grandpa. But Cody kept on. "Did they only come because they like Grandma?" Gramps scratched his head. "Why, no, Cody. Most likely they're not around anymore because of those new houses across the way. The old trees the birds used to nest in got cut down." I guess Cody got Gramps wondering, though, because later, when I went to say good night, I found him staring at the garden fence, as if he just noticed there hadn't been a bluebird in it for a long time. And that's got Grandpa wondering. That night, I lay awake watching moonlight flick across the quilt Grandma had made for me when I was born. Gramps was probably right about the bluebirds, I thought. Then I remembered something Grandma once told me. "I have a deal with the bluebirds, Mags. I grow some of their favorite plants, holly, honeysuckle, and Virginia creeper. In return, they come and sit on the fence each morning, warbling in the new day." But how could the bluebirds find these plants now when the garden was smothered by weeds? Mags is upset, and here she is thinking about the bluebirds that used to come. So the next morning I pulled on my jeans and grabbed Grandma's sun hat from the peg. Gramps watched from the kitchen window, swirling his coffee around in his old cracked mug. "I ain't touched it in almost a year, Mags," he called out after a bit. "It's too far gone now." I pulled hard on a big thistle. "I'm just puttering." Like your grandmother. Because Grandma used to putter in the garden. Gramps used to say that once Grandma started puttering in the garden, she was harder to get out than a dandelion. She'd be digging and weeding before we woke up, and again after supper when the sun let go its hot grip. Cody, Gramps, and I would sit slurping huge slices of watermelon, laughing to see who could spit seeds the farthest. Around us, night would settle into stillness. Only Grandma moved, bending and rising like a tall heron at the edge of the water. Gramps would call out, "Come on, hun, take a load off your feet." Her voice would drift back, soft as a sighing pine. "Just puttering." I like it that Grandpa thought that she looked like a heron, bending down and picking up the weeds again. The next day we drove to town so Gramps could get some nails. We don't have anything like Mr. Nelson's store in the city. It has every size of shovel, rake, and hammer you could think of. Bins and bins of nails, sacks of feed piled outside like hills. "Where'd that curious Cody get to, Mags?" asked Gramps when it was time to go. I finally found Cody sitting on a bag of sunflower seeds, reading something. "Let's go. Gramps is waiting." "Look," he said, holding it up for me to see. I shook my head. "Not now. Come on. Gramps will be mad." But Gramps was chatting with Mr. Nelson about the price of wheat. He held out a cardboard carton full of little plants. "Here you go, Mags." We came home with beans, zinnias, and snapdragons, yellow marigolds, and purple-faced pansies, cucumbers, and tomatoes. We would putter after all. They're going to have a garden. Yay. I worked in the garden every morning. Gramps had chores to do, so he didn't have much time to help, and Cody just got in the way. First he tried to weed. "Cody, don't pull that, it's a flower." Then he tried to dig. "Cody, watch out." Then he tried to plant. "Not like that, you'll tear the roots." Cody threw down his trowel. "You never let me help." "All right, you can," but too late, he was gone. After that, Cody took to wandering off by himself, but sometimes I'd see him walking along the fence. I wondered if he was doing what I was, watching for a flash of blue that never came. That flash of blue they're hoping for, the bluebirds. Our tomato plants grew fast. One morning, Gramps helped me set cages around them. After a while, he straightened up. "Sun's too hot for me. I'll round up Cody and make lunch." But when Gramps called for Cody, there was no answer. At first, we weren't worried, but then a whole hour went by. I looked all over the orchard. I even poked my head down the old empty well, though Cody knew better than to go near there. I went through the pasture to the creek. I looked all over the house. I felt an awful fear coming up in my mouth, like I might get sick. Gramps had just decided to call for help when the phone rang. All the way to town, Gramps drove without talking, his hands gripping the steering wheel. Cody was right where Mr. Nelson had told him to stay put, on a sack outside the store. He didn't notice that Gramps was wound up tight as a bindweed on a fence pole. "Look what I got," Cody called. "I bought it with my own money." Gramps didn't even look. His voice sounded rough as new sandpaper. "What got into your head, Cody, to traipse 2 miles down here and worry us like that?" "It's made especially for them," said Cody. I shook his arm. "Cody, we can put it along the pasture fence, Mags, near your garden." Cody persisted. "I bet they'll come back then." Gramps stepped back. "Whatever are you talking about, son?" What does he have in his arms there, you guys? Can you tell what that is? The bluebirds, Gramps. I've been reading all about them. It's hard for bluebirds now. They need special houses to keep their babies safe from other birds and animals. Cody held up a new wooden birdhouse. "I wanted to help too," he said. "I want to bring back Grandma's bluebirds." Gramps opened his mouth to say something, but then he stopped. We stood still a moment. It was one of those moments that gathers everything into it. It gathered the birdhouse and the garden. It gathered us and her love for Grandma and all our summer days and nights together. The moment was so full. It had so much in it. I felt like something just had to burst. And I might even cry. And it did. But nobody cried. All at once, Gramps began to laugh. His laugh was soft at first. I thought he might be crying, but then he laughed so hard Cody and I just had to join in. We stood in front of Mr. Nelson's store and laughed together a long time. I hope our laughter that day got carried on the wind like seeds to a far-off place where bluebirds might hear it. And if they do, maybe it will remind them of an old farm, a garden, and a woman moving gently as a heron. And there's the picture of Grandma. And there's our family, Gramps and Cody and Mags. And so next spring, maybe they will come back. They'll nest in the special bluebird boxes Cody and Gramps are building. They'll eat berries and insects from the garden. And they'll sit on the fence each morning, warbling in the new day. I think Gramps will like that. I think so too. The end pages talk about bluebirds. And these days, Gramps was right. If you want to attract some bluebirds, it's a good idea to build them a house. We had some bluebirds nesting in a house at my house, and I was hoping to get some pictures of it, but the bluebirds are between families right now. They had their first batch of eggs, and those chicks have grown and flown, and maybe a little bit later in the summer they'll come back and nest again. Okay, so today we're going to make mud pies. We're going to make 2 different kinds of mud pies, okay? I was thinking about attracting animals to come back to our houses, attracting bees and butterflies, maybe even bluebirds too, but I thought the best thing we could do is make a butterfly mud pie, and we're also going to make a wildflower mud pie. We're going to start with the butterfly mud pie. So the first thing you're going to need is a pan. It doesn't have to be a pie tin like this. It can be any kind of shallow bowl, shallow pan that you can put outside, that your grown-ups don't care if it doesn't come back into the kitchen to be eaten out of again. And let me see if I can make some room here. Oh boy. Okay, kind of small. Let's see. You're going to want to take your pan, and the first thing that you're going to want to do, hopefully you have these things at your house. You probably do. You can improvise if not. That means find something that'll work just as good. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to take a spoon, and we're going to spoon some potting soil into the pan just to cover the bottom. The potting soil is what your grown-ups, your mom, your dad, maybe your grandma, uses to plant flowers. They'll use it outside. They might use it inside. And you just need enough to cover the bottom of the pan. My pan's kind of big. So let's get some in here. My potting soil is sort of wet already. Just scrunch it down like that so it covers. We want a place that is going to look natural and inviting for the butterflies to come. Okay, I think that'll be enough. I'm going to chop it up a little bit. And the next thing, we have a visitor, Aggie. There's my dog, you guys. You want to meet Aggie? Say hi, Aggie. Those of you who watch Shamrock on Fridays have seen him. Shamrock's a good dog who knows lots of tricks and behaves and listens. Aggie's a puppy, so she's still learning. But I hope she leaves us alone. Oh boy, Aggie might have to go in her crate. Aggie, do you want to say hi to the kids? Say hi to everyone. This is Aggie. She's our girl, aren't you? You need to go in your crate? Behave. Okay. After you have your potting soil in there, you're going to want to take and spoon some sand on top. Now, I hope you have some sand. If you have a sandbox, you can get sand there. If not, maybe you have some sand somewhere else. If you can't find sand, I don't think it matters a whole lot. Oh boy, Aggie is really, really interested in this. I should have known. All right. Okay, spoon some sand on top. Like I said, we want it to look like somewhere where butterflies would feel at home. There we go. There's our top potting soil and our sand. And now the instructions that I had said. spoon some salt on top. I'm not sure why, but I'm just gonna, sprinkle some salt on top. I'm gonna do it. It might be so that when we make the mud pie part, the mud won't turn all yucky. Salt helps to preserve things, even water. Then you're going to want to take a nice rock to put on top. It should be kind of flat, at least on one side, and have lots of space on it. Okay, put your rock in the middle. Now, when you're ready to put this outside, what you're going to want to do, let's see. Oh, Aggie, what do you think? Oh, she likes to dig. She likes actually stones. She likes all the things that this is made out of. All right, Ag, you can let me put a little bit of water here. Just kind of, this is where you're making the mud pie. You just want a little bit of water. Butterflies need a little bit of water too. And then, just before you're ready to put it outside, this is really going to drive Aggie nuts, put some syrup on. I've got maple syrup here. All right? Okay. Just dribble some of that syrup right on the rock like that. Let's see if Aggie wants to lick. You want some on my finger? Okay, little girl. Okay, yeah, she's going to lick that off my finger. Okay. And there is your butterfly mud pie. Okay. Okay. I took a little break there, and I took our butterfly mud pie outside to get it away from Aggie. She's very interested. We're going to make our second mud pie now, which is a wildflower mud pie. Now, if you participate in summer reading this year, when you pick up your goodie bag from the library, and you can find out about that by looking on our website, you will get a little baggie full of wildflower seeds in your bag. And the reason we did that was so that maybe you could make a wildflower mud pie too. Now for this, we're using actual real garden dirt, okay? I dug this up out of the ground. Hopefully you have a place where you can dig. You don't need much, so it's not like you're going to make a big hole or anything. And then you're going to want to crumble it up in a pan. Again, you're going to want a bowl that probably doesn't get used for food because this is, it's dirt. It's not the cleanest thing, although it's not going to hurt you. You can use gloves if you want to. I like to just use my bare hands because I just like the way it feels to play in the dirt. And so you're going to take, about a cup of dirt, maybe a little bit more, and your wildflower seeds. Or, if you don't have any in a bag, you can use pretty much any kind of flower seed that will make flowers if you don't plant it very deep. You can tell. You could go to the dollar store and get a little packet of, marigolds, zinnias, different things that don't need to be planted too deep. And put them in there, as many as you like. And now comes the mud pie part, because here's where it really gets fun. Again, we got dirt and water, and that's really all that's needed to make a mud pie, right? Oh boy. I made mine a little bit too wet, I'm afraid. And I got rid of the rest of my dirt. Oh man, too bad. That's okay. It'll work still. Stir around. If you don't like getting your fingers dirty, you can use a spoon. It doesn't matter. But after you've mixed it pretty well, mix that seed all the way through that mud, then you take and you make a mud pie. Okay, I think I have enough to make a couple of mud pies. I have a plastic lid over here to put my mud pies on, which I'll show you here in a minute. Aggie, no. I'm going to run into trouble here, you guys. I've got a dog that's very interested, and I've got very, very muddy hands. No, Aggie, that's not for you. Okay, hang on, everyone. Hang on just a minute. Okay, let me show you what the mud pies look like. See? I just put them on a plastic. And this is a lid off of an ice cream dish, I think. Then I'm going to put them outside and I'm going to let them dry. It might take a while for them to dry, but after those mud pies dry, maybe in a day or two, depending on what the weather does, you might want to get them in out of the rain if it rains. Let them get good and hard, and then you take those mud pies and you pick a spot in your yard or your garden where you would like to see some flowers grow, and you just take and throw it and smash it on the ground and let that mud pie, dried up mud pie, spread out. The seeds will spread out and hopefully some wildflowers will come up. Okay? That's what I'm hoping. I haven't tried it before now, but I'm going to take mine outside after they dry, and I'm going to see if I can plant them myself. And hopefully after a while we'll see some butterflies, maybe some bees. We might even see some bluebirds. I hope so. Thanks for coming today, you guys. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.